The sustainability of fashion brands is constantly in the news right now, with lots of brands releasing their so-called responsible or sustainable lines.
But how can we tell who's serious about sustainability and where greenwashing is at play?
We're sitting down with ex-fashion buyer and slow fashion advocate Robyn Poppy to dig deeper into the business of fashion.
Plus, we ask the question that we've both been trying to figure out for a while. Where on earth do you begin when it comes to shopping secondhand when you're used to a wardrobe diet of next day delivery?
Investing is just one way that you could take care of your future finances by giving your money more potential to grow.
With Wealthify, you can start investing with as little or as much as you'd like.
And luckily for you, Wealthify is offering all Money Unfiltered listeners the chance to get an extra £50 boost to your investment pot.
You can pick a risk level that's right for you and know how much you're paying for your investments to be looked after by their team of experts thanks to their clear and affordable fees.
So if you've been thinking about starting to invest and you've been putting it off, then now could be the perfect time to make the leap.
So what do you need to do? Simply open a Wealthify plan and invest £50. Then, after 12 months of the money being invested, Wealthify will add another £50 to your plan. How great is that? Now for the legal bit. T's and C's obviously apply, and this offer is open to new Wealthify customers only.
It will only be available to the first 500 qualifying customers. And you'll also need to claim the offer via the dedicated landing page and pay £50 into your plan by the 31st of December 2022.
Head to the show notes for the link to claim this offer and read the full T's and C's, or head to wealthify.com/Money Unfiltered.
And remember, with all investing, your capital is at risk and you could get back less money than you put in. Wealthify is also authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. So thank you so much for joining us, first of all.
Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited to get into this topic. It's something we've talked about a lot, and I think you're going to be able to give us some really good insights.
I hope so.
To get us started, I think the first thing is, as somebody who has worked in the fashion industry, had a career as a fashion buyer, do you think that the business of fashion is compatible with sustainability?
No. I honestly don't think it is. I think it's a really hard one, and you kind of have to break down what sustainability actually means, because it's such one of those words that's thrown around.
Yeah.
Whereas I think obviously there's so many different kind of factors to it. You kind of have like the ethics of a brand, of kind of how they treat their workers, how much they pay their workers, the conditions, things like that. You have obviously like the fabrics that they're made out of. So natural fabrics are often better than obviously like man-made fabrics. And then you have like the environmental impact.
Yeah.
So all of it kind of comes together. So I think a lot of brands will try and maybe focus on a couple of those things to try and be more sustainable. So maybe they'll use organic cotton, or they'll make sure they pay their workers fairly. But the business model will never be sustainable because obviously it's about volume.
Yeah.
So there's very, very, very few brands that can kind of produce that amount of garments and have all the processes in place to make it sustainable. It's just really, really hard. Yeah, so I would say no. It's a challenge, basically, that they've kind of got to deal with.
Do you think it applies to businesses across the board in terms of like cheaper and more expensive luxury items? Are they all still facing that same issue that ultimately they need people to buy more?
Yeah, I think it's that thing of, we put a lot of pressure with the sustainability argument on the consumer, of kind of saying they need to buy less or they need to buy more expensive sustainable items type thing. But the only way that essentially a business will be able to buy less and like bring out less clothes and make it sustainable is for the companies to absorb the costs.
Yeah.
Like, it's got to go somewhere, basically. So either the company would have to absorb the costs, or they'd have to pay their workers less.
Yeah.
Or they'd have to make the garments cheaper. Because I think that's one thing. So when I was working in fashion buying, obviously you have a margin that you've got to meet, which is a company-wide margin that's kind of given to you. it might depend on what category you work in. For example, like the margin will be different on belts than it is on jersey. It's just how it is. But you have got to meet that margin. You're under pressure to kind of get it down. The only way that that would change would be to come from the top of like a company. So like Patagonia last week, obviously how they've kind of now said that there's not one person benefiting or like the company's not benefiting, it's going to charity. So that model works. But obviously when you think about like Arcadia back in the day, like Philip Green was very greedy. So he was never going to be like,
I'll have one less
exactly. So it really probably does come from the top, I think, which is an issue. So
what I would really like to ask you is, I'm just trying to envisage the situation where you are a fashion buying assistant and you have been told this is the margin. You've gone out to suppliers, you've sourced this belt or this product. The price is too high, so you really need to bring it down so you meet that margin. Have you ever seen people in the buying department, you know, some of the buyers or the buying assistants pushing back and saying, we can't get them down anymore, it's not right?
Yeah, but then with the companies I've worked with before are pretty ethical, like have good standards in place, and I wouldn't work for anyone that was like really awful. But yeah, so the kind of thing I've experienced is it's more that, I don't know, you get samples come in, which are lovely, beautiful things. So I used to work in like kids accessories on my placement year, and you'd have all these like all the bells and whistles, and it was like fabulous, like these amazing products. Yeah. But then you'd get the cost and it would be too expensive. So the natural thing to do is you would then take things off it, you would change the fabric, you might get rid of one of the zips on it. So like it's more the thing of, you wouldn't necessarily say, oh, we can't have this full stop. It's just you would have to then adapt to then be able to make it come into the costs for your margin.
What are those things? What are like the low-hanging fruit? When you've got the sample, what are the things that are like, if we do this, it'll bring the price down immediately?
So, oh God, I'm trying to think. It could be anything from the fabric composition. I'd say that's the main one. I used to work on like a trousers department, like denim. So it's that thing of, if you have 100% organic cotton, that's going to cost way more than if you have 20% organic cotton, which is also one of those things that a lot of brands do. They'll say, oh, organic cotton. And it's like, no, you look at the label and you're like, it's like 20% or something. Yeah. So it's like a bit questionable.
I have one of those that I want to ask you about.
Okay, go on.
Vegan leather.
Oh, vegan leather. Plastic.
I don't want to get cancelled, but I think it's the most ridiculous thing ever because it's plastic. So my argument is that I think anyone that says that they buy something that's vegan leather, that's great if you don't want to hurt the animals, if that makes sense. It serves that purpose.
Yeah.
So maybe it's more ethical than sustainable.
It's a totally different thing, because I've seen this as well. And like this idea that actually buying secondhand leather is more sustainable, because
I would say so.
It's already out there. It's been made.
Yeah. I would say, because I feel like someone will come at me if I don't say it, I'm pretty sure as well, like with vegan leather, there are more natural alternatives. You can have like, I think it's like pineapple leather or like cactus leather. There's like other alternatives which are obviously better than like plastic. But that's the thing, I think veganism and sustainability is so different. It's two different like moral issues almost. I think sometimes when you have conversations with someone who's vegan, then it's so interesting to hear that insight. But I do follow a girl, I won't say, like she is like a bit of like a sustainability activist, is like quite like hot on all stuff like that. And I remember, I think I saw a post from her recently saying she's switched away from vegan leather now, or like she'll buy secondhand leather or things like that now because she's realised she thinks it's better. I'm like, if she's saying that and she's vegan and she's like a sustainability like activist, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think it's all about the wording of it. I actually do really like fashion, but not necessarily newer fashion. Yeah. So vegan leather is not something I come into contact with like very often. And this is embarrassing, but I imagine there's many people who think the same. If I hear vegan leather, on the surface, it sounds like something good to me. And that is why it's been called that. Whereas if you say plastic, I'm like,
yeah, you think it's awful. Yeah, so maybe it is like a marketing.
I honestly.
Oh no, I think it is 100% marketing.
I think the thing with sustainability as well is, like you said, it's about consumption. So it's how many times are you going to wear that? jacket. So say it's a leather jacket and it's like an animal leather jacket. If you wear it loads, that's like not fine, but it's more how often you're going to wear something. So again, if you were vegan and for ethical reasons you don't want to buy real leather, fine, but make sure you're wearing that jacket that's made out of plastic loads. And actually get the wear out of it.
Yeah.
And some people won't say that. I feel like in terms of sustainability, I'm kind of like the middle person. Like, I like to kind of not be intimidating. I'm not going to like stand here and be like, you should never shop at H&M, which is controversial, I think, actually, to say for someone who talks about sustainability. But I would not say never do this, because there's so many things that come into play of like whether it's affordable, whether it's size inclusive, all things like that. Yeah, I think it's just how much wear are you going to get out of something?
This question of, you know, one popular line that comes out a lot is that it's too expensive to buy sustainable brands. So I guess in this case, we're normally talking about those new items that you want to buy that are from a company that has a better standard of ethical standards, sustainability. A lot of people say, oh, it's too expensive, I can't afford it, or it's not accessible. Is that true? Or is that just an excuse?
It's both, because it is more expensive, but there's a reason why it's more expensive. So obviously, like we was talking about earlier, you know, the ethics of the company are going to be better. They're going to be paying their workers more. The working conditions of the workers are going to be better. It's going to be a safer environment, less damage on the environment. Denim, when you think about it, like uses so much water. So sustainable denim uses less. Yeah, it comes with a price. It's more expensive. But my argument is that it's the difference of, say, if someone has got £100 to spend, whether they choose to buy 10 items at £10, or do they choose to buy 2 items at £50.
Yeah.
Which, when you think about it, £50 probably is maybe what like a sustainable t-shirt might cost.
Yeah.
A sustainable jumper might cost, if that makes sense. So basically feeds into the argument of buying less. If you essentially look at your budget and you are happy to buy less because you've got in the habit of consuming less, then actually it's not necessarily more expensive. It's just more expensive relatively to those cheaper items that you could get for that price.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
That makes complete sense. No, that
Yeah.
makes complete sense. And I think when you buy an item that you really like, and if it is good quality and it lasts,
Yes.
it's amazing. Whereas if you buy something that's just for the sake of it, and
Yeah.
you just needed a t-shirt or whatever, you just spent a £5 or a £10 in Primark, a week later it's like, oh, you're over it.
Yeah.
Do you think, though, that we have literally just got so used to clothes being so cheap that we have lost perspective of how much things actually should cost?
And I think you're so far removed from it as well. So you go into a shop and you see a t-shirt for £10, like you don't know what goes into it essentially, and you're kind of thinking at that point, oh, it's not really on me to really care, because like I can just buy this and it's here already, it's made already. If I didn't buy this, someone else would or something. And it's like, yeah, there's so much that goes into it. But I think your point in terms of the quality is so important, and I get that maybe not everyone has that upfront cost of like the £50 to spend on a jumper, but I think the sustainability argument is not aimed at those people.
No.
Because whenever you do a video on social and you talk about sustainable fashion, people will be like, I can't afford that, I can only afford this £10 t-shirt from Primark. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, if that's all you can afford and like you're going to get the wear out of that t-shirt, that's probably better than someone buying the £50 jumper but wearing it once.
Yeah.
So again, it all comes into kind of how much you're going to wear something, how much use you're going to get out of it. So,
It sounds like basically there's also a bit of intention there as well. Like it's important to just be intentional. I would like to ask a slightly different question, which is sustainable fashion is trendy right now. It's cool.
Yes.
We've got the eBay, Love Island partnership, fast fashion brands are now jumping on the sustainability bandwagon. How can we tell who's genuinely sustainable and who's just greenwashing?
So I think there's a couple of things that come into play with it. I think the first thing is if you're wanting to kind of get past the greenwashing and see what a company's like, there's various things you can do. It's basically all down to transparency. So a lot of brands that are genuinely sustainable and transparent, like you can go on their website, there will be sustainability reports. They'll very clearly say what they're doing well and what they're not doing well, what they're working towards. A lot of brands will have full visibility on what factories are used, which is a big one. And you can often then see whether that factory has been audited, which it will have been because it's on their website.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can like clue yourself up a bit on fabrics. Google's great. Learn anything on the internet. I don't know, when it says kind of recycled polyester, how great is recycled polyester? It's still plastic. So it's kind of things.
But the word recycled makes it sound so good.
Exactly, yeah. And also, say the Boohoo Kardashian debacle. But it's things like that of like, then when you take a step back and you look at maybe like how big that collection is out of their whole output of clothes, it's minor. So that's when you can tell it's kind of greenwashing, because it's such a small percentage of their whole brand model.
I mean, not to slam them specifically, but it's like, don't worry about bringing out this tiny little sustainable line. Why don't you just stop doing the other 98% of what you're doing, and that'll be way better.
It's because, like you said, it's just marketing. On trend.
Yeah,
it's marketing.
Yeah, it's cool.
However, I do remember saying, I think it was maybe like a good 3 years back now, when I started having a bit of like a moral conscience, because essentially I only really got into more sustainable fashion when I first started fashion blogging, and I think I'd just finished university, you know, was getting gifted from the likes of like Pretty Little Thing, Boohoo, whatever. And I think it was only when I kind of started growing that following on Instagram a little bit, and I remember getting gifted something from Boohoo and it just fell apart after like one wear.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God, if I actually have any influence on like young girls and they're buying something based off a recommendation and the quality is awful, and I was like, I can't do it anymore. But yeah, and I remember saying to someone around that time, I was like, I think the only way that sustainable fashion will ever become a thing is if it is popular, if it is cool. So it's kind of like there are maybe problems within that, but I do think it has to become a trend, because people are so influenced by their friends or people on the internet or things like that. It has to literally be seen to be what you should be doing or what you want to be doing, what's cool. I went just like round my local charity shops the other week, and it was like a Saturday, and there's just like so many like young girls with their friends shopping in these charity shops. And I was like 10 years ago when I was a teenager, like you wouldn't be seen dead in a charity.
It's completely different now.
Not a thing. So I do think like that's good. No one could say like that's not great.
I have teenage nieces and they think it's very, very cool to buy secondhand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I also think that as soon as you start changing your like buying habits or your shopping habits, it would be hard to go back. So even if somehow, if like sustainable fashion suddenly like isn't on trend, I can't see it reverting back. But if it was, I don't think people's buying habits would switch that quickly back to fast fashion.
Yeah, and I mean, you touched on it there, but I think it is relatively new, I would say, still, this like popularity of it. Do you think there are any kind of threats to it or any ways that it might actually struggle? Like, do you think prices in charity shops are going to go up and things, but if it becomes more popular and more competitive?
I mean, generally, I think you can't ignore like the cost of living crisis that obviously we're like going to go through. And I think, like you said, I think if it does rise in popularity, especially vintage shops. So like I had a friend that was from like New Zealand. They've came over to the UK now, and I was talking about like secondhand options. And I was saying, obviously, you've got your vintage stores, you've got charity shops, and then you've got like car boot sales. Vintage shops are just as expensive as like almost buying.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. So at the moment, your charity shops and your car boot sales is where you can still get a bargain and it's cheaper and things like that. But the vintage shops are just getting more and more expensive. But yeah, that's where I think people's buying habits need to slowly change, if that makes sense. Because if people are willing to buy less, then the price thing doesn't matter as much.
I often go into a charity shop, like whenever I pass a charity shop, if I'm mooching down the high street, like I'll often just go in and just think, oh, like I'll just see if I spot anything. I'll look at the homeware because it's all nicely displayed. I'll look at the clothes, I'll glance at them, and I think I can't be bothered going through all of those rails. I feel that I would genuinely pay a premium to go into a charity shop that's actually been curated.
My local one is.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah. So especially obviously like London based. I think it's like the Shelter charities.
So I haven't just discovered this
and
new
then the Royal
niche.
Trinity Hospice ones and Farah,
Yeah.
those ones, they are amazing.
Yeah.
They are so good because they are generally laid out like a shop.
Yeah.
So it's so much easier, which is when you were saying about like it being overwhelming, that's what makes it so much easier. So yeah, I think there will be more and more that kind of come into play. But then obviously charity shops are funded, they're like charities. So in terms of kind of like expecting them to, I don't know, put money into the way their stores look, I think that maybe that would have to come from the government. I'm not sure. Like they might need to get more backing to make it accessible. But then is the government going to do that when you like all these big corporations? Like, I don't know. Yeah, so it's a tricky one.
This may never happen, but
Yeah.
do you think there's a risk that if everyone hypothetically did get into much better consumption habits, where would the charity shops get all of their clothes from?
There would just be less. There'd be less in the charity shops. But I don't, to be honest, I don't have the stats, but I'm pretty sure, like, I don't know if it's changed since people are shopping there more. There are so many items that get donated to charity that still end up in landfill.
Yeah.
Really?
I'm not surprised by that at all.
Massively.
Yeah.
I think it used to be a thing like a good few years back where it's almost like you donating to charity isn't necessarily actually the best thing to do.
Yeah.
Because like there was so much that just gets shipped off. I don't think that's something we'd face like in the next couple of years or something. And then also I guess it just comes into the idea that then if people are shopping less, do they need to buy as many clothes? Another argument that this is why it's all so complicated that comes into sustainability and new clothes. So obviously when I worked in fashion buying, you're dealing with factories and like sourcing offices in different countries, and those countries rely on that income. Bangladesh, for instance, the majority of their infrastructure or their jobs, it's all within like clothing manufacturing. When I used to work at M&S, obviously over COVID, people like Primark just cut all their orders. Don't quote me on it, but like there were orders literally being shipped on the water and they just cancelled them. So like the stock had already been made, things like that. They were like, no, it was cutthroat. Whereas what M&S did was they honoured a lot of the orders that they'd placed, especially if stuff had already, like the fabric had already been ordered or the garments had already been made. Then they put it into storage for the next year. So they kind of honoured those contracts. But what it did mean is that the following year, when you were looking to like book newness, there wasn't as much of it because they were like, oh, we've got all of this in storage. So we constantly had like our sourcing offices kind of ringing us up saying, oh, is there like any new orders that are going to get placed? This factory is used to having like X amount of like things being made and we've got like hardly any orders. So that's like a huge issue.
It's like we've built this infrastructure that so many people and so many livelihoods rely on that the ethics get really difficult, don't they? Because we need to consume less. We know we need to consume less, but also like I don't want to be responsible for these people who can't then feed their families because they're losing their jobs because I think I'm being a good person by buying less stuff.
But then that's where the prices go up, or if the prices don't go up, the margin needs to be lower, which then gets absorbed by the companies.
But if the prices did go up, then we would consume less and we would get used to it.
So it's a really hard one. So this is why like when you get all those really like proper sustainability activists, a lot of the time, you know, you can only do so much as a consumer. It really does come down to the organisations because they're the ones making the profit, they're the ones making the money out of it, and they're the ones who are kind of, like I said, filtering down saying, oh, we need to hit this margin, we need to have this profit level. It's such a complicated, intricate topic.
And in sort of bigger organisations that we know, is it typical for, you know, people from the headquarters to be visiting the factories every so often? And do you find that those who are more ethical are making more visits and kind of keeping an eye on what's going on more?
Yeah, I mean, I can't talk, I guess, for companies that don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, companies I've worked for, a lot of them will have sustainability teams, like big corporate companies. Yeah. So I worked at Georgia Asda and Marks and Spencer's.
Yeah.
So they have sustainability teams and kind of sourcing teams. So they will send people out to the factories to do all the audits, do all the checks. Again, it's like a whole can of worms because there is the issue with outsourcing. So then basically what happens is you've got these factories that on paper a brand is using them, but if you're putting too much pressure on them to meet a certain margin,
They can outsource
they'll
it.
just be like, right, okay, we'll actually outsource it to this really dodgy place that isn't on record. But then there's so many other checks you have to do to try and make sure that's not happening. So I think it's like, you know, when like the Rana Plaza thing happened like all the way back, I'm pretty sure there were like brands who had clothes in that factory that were like, we knew nothing about this.
Because
It's
it had
been
been
outsourced,
Yeah.
So there's so much more that's been put in place to try and minimise that happening now. Like mind my language, but it is honestly a bit of a shit show.
Yeah.
Like there is no easy answer to it. And I think sometimes, obviously, I've kind of got both sides of, I'm like a consumer, like do sustainability stuff, and obviously worked in fashion buying. So I can see it from all
every
sides.
side.
And it's not a simple, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Question. So
And I think you're right. I think that so often this topic gets oversimplified. Like I do consume some of the content that a lot of the sustainability advocates and campaigners put out there. And I do think there's some great messages, and I do totally agree. But I think that so often it's easy to brush over the complexities and like the layers in it, because even in this kind of half an hour, we've covered so many different angles that I hadn't thought about naively, maybe, about the people that have the jobs that want those orders coming in. And it gets so complicated. But I think, like you said, you know, it has to come from the top.
it does.
In a lot of respects.
Yeah.
But just from the kind of consumer angle, that is what we can do. We are in control of our decisions.
Yeah.
It's tough. I think I acknowledge like that it's very difficult to get away from the constant need to buy more clothes. But for someone like me who is relatively new to secondhand shopping, thrifting, where do you begin?
I think it's being kind to yourself, of kind of the thing of, I was trying to think of an analogy earlier, and like, you know how there's some smokers that can quit cold turkey. And there's some people that can't.
Need to,
And that is fine.
Yeah.
If you need to start vaping to like get off cigarettes, that's fine. So I would say, don't think that you're just going to overnight be like, I'm sustainability queen. Like I am only shopping like secondhand, because I don't.
Yeah.
So I think if you want to shop secondhand, I would say start by trying to kind of either swap out items in your wardrobe. So say you've got a blazer from Pretty Little Thing that is just a black blazer, the quality's not that nice, the fit's not that nice, and you're like, I don't like that, it's just not working for me anymore. There will be so many black blazers in charity shops, probably from better brands, not made better. So just swap it out.
Okay.
And then gradually over time, you're going to build this really nice kind of like secondhand capsule wardrobe almost.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'd say like when you go thrift shopping or like charity shopping, it is very overwhelming. So I often would go in looking for certain things, and I try and look for certain things that are always going to be there, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So a lot of charity shops you go into, they will have good oversized blazers. They will probably have some nice shirts. Always look in the men's section because they're the best ones. Yes. Jackets and coats around this time of year. Knitwear. You can always get so many good like cashmere jumpers and better quality.
Yeah.
So I'd kind of go looking for those things. I think some items like trousers and tops are a minefield in a charity shop because it's like they all fit differently. Tops as well are never as good quality. So you're going to get something that might be a bit like old and a bit dusty, and it's like it doesn't feel that nice. So yeah, I'd kind of start with those basic things and then kind of go from there essentially. So
I can do that. I can definitely start with like the coats, the staple expensive item.
Yes, I'd say so. Or even obviously then it's not just charity shops and shops. There's obviously like your vintage, your Depop, things like that. Like that's a good.
What about friends and family as well? Like I would never ever like have proclaimed to be a sustainable fashion queen, but between me and my mum and my sister and two nieces, like we're women, our bodies change all the time, and we pass clothes to and from each other. Like it's insane.
No, I think that's great. There's a influencer I follow, and I always get her name wrong. It's like Ione or something, and she is always just like living her best life out with all of her girl mates, and like will always put on her stories like they're all just wearing each other's clothes.
Yes,
so
I do that
go
with
on
some
holiday and literally just swap between. Like,
Yes.
I remember, I think they went on one holiday and like there was one dress and all of them wore it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So it's things like that, like normalizing.
I've swapped loads of clothes with girlfriends as well. Yeah, it's like, oh, I don't
Yeah.
want these. I don't wear them. Do you want them? Like, yeah.
And I'd also say, because I think bloggers or influencers come under a lot of stick because obviously they're promoting like wearing loads of clothes and newness and things like that. So you get all these like Zara hauls and H&M hauls and all stuff like that. But there is the pressure because people want to see stuff they can buy.
Yeah.
So like my audience on Instagram kind of stagnated, to be honest, when I stopped posting proper fashion content. They kind of like lost people, but then gained probably more people who are into like sustainable fashion. But those fashion influencers that are doing really well, it's because they're posting newness. They're posting things that people can see it and buy it straight away. That pressure to have like new clothes, if you're going to have new clothes, share that blazer from Zara around, like milk it for what it's worth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Also, I don't know if you talk about this. I genuinely wear, like, I'm not joking, like a big proportion of my wardrobe came from my mum because like she has all these amazing clothes. That requires like a huge degree of luck. I am lucky. She's like super stylish.
Yeah, like my mum got rid of like everything. I'd buy something and she was like, oh, I had something like that when I was young. I was like, why didn't you keep it then?
I am very lucky and I make her keep everything. But like one thing I also do, and I've done this from things I've bought in shops as well, you can tailor things.
I am lazy.
Yeah.
And that's something in my head I could do better at. I think it's Beyond Retro have a partnership with, I want to say they're called like the Sojo app.
Yes.
Yeah, where basically you could buy something in Beyond Retro and if it doesn't fit right, I think in store potentially they can pin it.
Wow.
Show
Yeah, that's
how
very
you want
cool.
it to be, and then maybe they send it off and get it done. So
That's amazing.
So I think more and more things like that will come about.
I just wanted to ask before we kind of let you go, because there's been so much in here that is super helpful. What would be your kind of number one thing if someone is like, I'm addicted to fast fashion, I want to change, I have no idea where to start? What would be the number one first step?
I would say design a capsule wardrobe, because even if you are a Zara girly, a H&M girly, and you're like, you like all things like that, that will help you buy less. Use Pinterest as inspo, things like that, or use even those fast fashion bloggers that you follow.
Yeah.
You know, use them for inspo of what they've got, but then just have a really tight capsule wardrobe. And then that's going to, I think, enforce those habits of maybe buying less. And then I think then you can start to like build in maybe more statement pieces within that. And yeah, also I just say try shopping secondhand. And I think obviously, I don't think we've even touched on it actually today. And I think it's important to say that obviously size inclusivity is a real issue with like charity shops shopping secondhand.
Yeah.
So I would say if you are one of those people out there that is struggling to kind of find items in charity shops that fit, things like that, I would still shop at high street brands, but just buy less.
Yeah.
Buy less and then get excited about shopping secondhand.
I was going to say, and surely, like, I feel that there should be some joy in this. Like, surely those things that you buy, like, should really be things that you actually love. And I think the sound of a capsule wardrobe, people probably just think, oh, well, I need a black pair of trousers and a white pair of trousers and a pair of jeans. Like, no, I think it has to be stuff that you absolutely, like, really love.
Yeah, for sure. So I do these Instagram stories inspired by the lovely Kavita. She's like, She Wears Fashion, I think it is. She started doing this thing where it's like you go into a charity shop and it's like thrift or miss. So you'd basically like show people what was there and like the polls, whether they'll buy it or not. And I think because I worked in fashion buying, I'm always very much looking, like we talked about, of kind of what brand it is, what the fabric composition is, what the quality is like, and then kind of weighing that up against the price and how much I love something.
Yes.
So that comes into kind of what you're saying. Yeah. So I think obviously you've got all of those things, but ultimately you loving it means you're going to wear it more.
Yeah.
Which again comes into that thing of you needing to buy less.
Yeah.
Because you've got something you absolutely love. So these like cream trousers, they're a bit big for me right now, but like if they fit perfectly, I would never have a need for another pair of cream trousers.
Well, then you can go get them tailored, and then you
yeah, I know, exactly. So things like that, I'm like, you don't need any anymore because you love that item. So yeah.
If I'm shopping on the high street and I see that they have a sustainable range, do I need to be digging deeper to see whether that's really sustainable? Like, can I trust it on face value, or do I need to dig a bit deeper?
Yeah, I wouldn't trust it on face value. If you see an item in that range and you're like, oh my God, I must have that. I love it. I've been looking for something like that. That's fine still. Just buy it. But if you're kind of going and you're like, oh, I kind of want to support that brand because you think they're doing something good,
check it out first.
Then look into it, is what I'd say. Because a lot of the time then obviously you can find the details of maybe like the factories or the sustainability reports or actually like what's gone into it. I know that Venetia Lamana, I think is how you say her. She used to be Venetia Falconer. She talks about a lot of companies that haven't paid their workers properly, or there's like things outstanding. But yeah, I'd say if you really love the item, buy it regardless. I don't know if I should say that because I feel like people are going to come for me. But yeah, I'd say buy it regardless. If you're umming and ahhing and you're only buying from that brand because you think you're doing good, look into it.
My other question is price a good indicator of quality or not? And I'm talking, we have huge disparities with clothes from the high street to designer brands where a t-shirt can easily cost upwards of £500. Is price an indicator of quality?
I think you've just hit the nail on the head of it depends what brand. So if it's designer, I'd almost like discount that. It's going to be on its own price scale almost. So like you said, that's like £500 for an organic cotton t-shirt. The organic cotton doesn't justify it being £500. You should basically look at brands that are almost like a bit of a benchmark. So I think it's Is It Good On You app or Good For You? I don't know. There's an app.
I like the sound
And it
of this.
basically, you download it and you can kind of type in the retailer and it says whether they're like good, great, they've made a start. I would say brands like M&S are a good one to actually look at because they can have an organic t-shirt probably for like, I want to say maybe like 20-25 quid. So then if a brand is charging 80 to 100 quid for a very, very similar t-shirt, they're making a bigger margin on it. So then it all comes into play of like, do you want to buy that t-shirt because it's organic cotton or is it because you want to buy into that brand? And if you're going to love that t-shirt and feel good because you're wearing that brand, that's still fine. But in terms of actually the cost and quality, I would look to brands kind of like your M&S for the kind of, that's what it could cost. And so any cheaper than that, like Primark,
is a problem.
It's probably because they've
potentially really
cut
helpful.
Corners elsewhere. Or if they've not cut corners on the surface, it might just be because they make their margins a lot of the time by the huge volumes. So if you place a huge volume with a supplier, they'll bring the price per unit down because you're placing more business with them. But then that plays into the issue of it's because they're creating so many garments.
Yeah, and if you don't sell it,
and
it's going to landfill.
But yeah, I'd kind of look to them as kind of like a high street benchmark.
I think that for somebody like me is really helpful. Honestly, it has been so brilliant to have you. Like, I have learned so much. This has been like such an education. So thank you so much. And I think I'm genuinely like very interested in this topic now. I know Ellie's been really like delving into it for a while.
Nice.
I'm really excited about it. And I'm really excited to put this one out there. For anybody else who's listened to this and loved kind of hearing about this topic and what you have to say, where can they find you?
Oh, they can find me at Robyn Poppy on Instagram and TikTok.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's me.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much.
Fab.